Welcome everyone to the Synoptic section for level 3. Today we're going to see the Synoptic assessment for the level 3 exam, uh, Advanced Diploma in Accounting, and we're going to follow the AQA Practice Assessment 1. So this one you can be found on the AAT website, also from any of the question bank. So I'm following the BPP question paper, even if you can follow from the AAT website or any of the question bank, for example, from Kaplan or from Osborne, you will find it there. As we already know, obviously, like the Synoptic is one of the paper that most of the student found it really difficult, and the exam is quite tricky because so many students and so many teacher even said like the Synoptic in level 3 for AAT is more harder than level 4. So you have to take some extra care in order to get a good score in the Synoptic exam for level 3. In the Synoptic exam, we have a two section. The first section is for the ethics, and obviously the next section is the combination of all this other paper except the indirect tax. So we have to have a good understanding of the previous paper that you already passed. For example, the management accounting, for example, the final account preparation, and for example, advanced bookkeeping. So all of this paper will have some question in your Synoptic for the next section. And obviously, all of the workings you have to do on Excel. And every single calculation we do in the Excel, we have to use the formulas. So you have to have a very good understanding few formulas from Excel. Especially VLOOKUP, for example, every time they have to look up something, we have to use these formulas. Then pivot table, then if, then goal seek. So this few formulas is very common in Synoptic exams. Sometimes they also ask for how to remove the duplicate values in Excel and also the conditional formatting. And obviously, the advanced sorting could be another formula that they can ask in the exam for the Synoptic. So you have to make sure you are very used to with these formulas. So let's start with our today's session. We start with ethics. So that will be our part one. Maybe we'll try to make another part later on. So that will be for the calculation side. So first we'll look at the theoretical side for the synoptic, and that will be from the ethics. Let's read this question. In this question, they said scenario task 1.1 is based on a workplace scenario separate to the rest of the assessment. Task 1.1 to 1.3 and 2.1 to 2.2 are based on the workplace scenario of BLM. You are part qualified accounting technician. You work for BLM and Co., a business which manufacture and sell zinc. BLM and Co. is owned and run by Brian and Lakmani Mori in partnership. So this is basically the partnership business. You cover all aspects of bookkeeping and accounting for the business, along with Joe Maloney, who is responsible in particular for completing the VAT return. So you're basically working with another colleague. His name is Jed Malone. So BLM and Co. also use the service of Addo and Co., a firm of accountant. Kyra Jackson is the accountant at Addo and Co. who carries out tasks for BLM and Co. So we have external accountant who carry out the work for our company, and the guy or the maybe the lady work for that company is Kyra Jackson. Basically, she is the in charge of working for BLM and Co. That is our company. Let's have a look. What is the requirement? What is the question here? The first task we have for 15 marks. So let's have a look. In this exam, you will be able to assess the relevant extract from the AAT Code of Professional Ethics via a pop-up window. This information is available in the appendix, which can be found at the back of this book. This task is based on a workplace scenario separate to the rest of the assessment. This task is about ethics for accountant. Now, the professional ethics or fundamental principles of ethics we have to memorize that. You don't have really time to open the appendix during the exam time, because your synoptic exam will be always a pressure. You will be running out of time anyway, so you don't have time to go back and look at the appendix and you come back and do the question again. So my advice will be, remember the fundamental principle for the ethics, and I can write it down, some easy steps that will help you to remember the fundamental principle of ethics. So we have five fundamental principle of ethics, and that is professionalism, competence and due care, then confidentiality, integrity and objectivity. So this is the five fundamental principle of ethics. So if you remember, there is a word it called Dr. Pico, Picco. So Dr. Pico will help you to remember the fundamental ethics. So let's have a look. How can Dr. Pico help us to remember the fundamental ethics principle? So we can see the P is for professional behavior, professional behavior, I for integrity, C for competence and due care, then C for confidentiality, and O for objectivity. So you can see how Dr. Pico helped you to remember the fundamental principle for ethics. So we have a P for professional behavior, I for integrity, C for competence and due care, C for confidentiality, and O for objectivity. So if you remember Dr. Pico, you can remember the fundamental principle of ethics. All right, let's move on to this question. This question is for true and false. So all we have to do, have to identify, is it true or is it false? The first one, it says accountants have no duty to act in the public interest provided that they act in the interest of their employer and the accountancy profession. So as an accountant, we don't have any responsibility to the public. That is absolutely false. We have a responsibility to the public. We always look something that is best interest for the public. So if something gone really wrong, we will compromise with the client, we'll sacrifice the client, but we'll look after the public interest. The next one, we have the Code of Professional Ethics provides detailed rules. That is absolutely wrong. The Code of Professional Ethics never gives us rules, it gives us the guideline. So this is the wrong word. It gives the guideline how to act in every possible situation that an accounting might encounter at work. So now professional code of ethics basically give us the guideline, not the rules. So you would say this is also false. So let's move on to the next one. So the next question we have, number B, said ethics are based on values which are demonstrated in behavior. Sometimes there is a conflict between the personal and the organizational value which need to be resolved. An accountant who is employed by a large organization personally values loyalty and fairness highly. So of course, like when we will be working as an accountant, there might be a the conflict between the organization policy and my personal view. So this is, there is a possibility, but it doesn't mean I have to have a clash with them. So as long as there is nothing like that go against of the public interest, I will have no personal conflict between the companies and my opinion. So it is very possible maybe my opinion never match with the company's policy, but we need to see is there is a conflict raised or do I have to resolve it. So if there is a conflict that I have personally involved with that, or somehow I am involving with that. For example, let's say there is a company bonus policy or there is a company holiday policy, and somehow I involve with that, because at the end I will get the bonus as well. So this one will be conflict between my opinion and the organization. So I will be involved with that. But let's say the organization have a policy where the organization said we don't advertise and we only recruit the people from inside of the organization or someone from the friends and family. So even though I feel maybe it is not correct, but I don't have any personal clash with that. So I cannot involve with that matter. So let's read this question. So we are saying here, ethics are based on the value which are demonstrated in a behavior. Sometimes there is a conflict between the personal and the organizational value which need to be resolved. An accountant who is employed by a large organization personally value loyalty and fairness highly. Okay, so they're saying in this table below, identify where there is a conflict between the organization behavior and the accountant personal value. Say yes or no. Organizational behavior, an accountant personal opinion, and there is a conflict to resolve. So I have a loyalty, that's my view, and I have a fairness, this is my personal value basically. Give long standing employee an extra half day holiday for every 2 years they remain with the organization. So obviously I am the employee for the organization, so that is relevant to me. So if there is a conflict to resolve, the answer will be yes, because I'm also the organization employee. So somehow I also involve with that decision. The next one is promotes employee on the basis of family or other close relationship. Even though I don't see this as a fair, but still I don't have any conflict that I have to resolve. I said no. This is the company choice. Company can do whatever they like. So this is not something I can do. All right, so let's move on to the next question. The next one we have here, it says an accountant has been offered a gift by the sales manager of one of his employer main supplier. The accountant has known the sales manager for several years. So if you know a person for several years, remember the familiarity threat created. So if you know the client for a long time, the familiarity threat will be created here. So we can say step number one, complete the following statement by selecting the correct option below. Being offered gift by the sales manager is what? To the accountant fundamental principle of what? So being offered gift by the sales manager. So if someone offer you the gift, and obviously that will create, because of the long-term relationship, that is familiarity threat. So we said familiarity threat. And option for gap 2. So that is the threat of objectivity. That is the threat of objectivity. Objectivity threat is created when I'm not independent, when I'm biased. So when I'm not independent, when I'm biased, that time objectivity threat can be created. So when there is a long-term relationship with anyone, then that will create the familiarity threat. And this type of threat is fundamental principle against of the objectivity. All right, so move to the next one. The next one we have from the ethics. That one we have here is said an accountant work for a large company. A potential customer of the company has asked the accountant to reveal confidential information about the company's cost structure and pricing strategy. The potential customer has offered to pay accountant for this information. So basically, when you are the accountant, you have access to all this private information and confidential information, and someone offering you like, I'll pay you some money, can you give me some information? So by no reason we are allowed to give that, unless it is a threat for the country or it is a threat for the public interest. We are not allowed to give any information to anyone, even not with your family member. So confidential information have to keep. This is one of the fundamental ethical principle for an accountant. So let's have a look. The first one, what is the situation? The situation here is we have to identify is it true or false. The first situation here is the accountant may never disclose confidential information to any third parties. So may never, that's not true. If it is relevant to the public interest, I have to share this information. So if it is relevant to the national threat, I have to, but not for every reason. The question said the accountant may never disclose, so this is not true. So this is false. If needed, I need to disclose the information, but it has to be for the public interest. The threat that the accountant is facing to her compliance with the fundamental principle is a self-interest threat. So here, what is the threat? They are saying like, I'll give you some money if you give me some information. So someone offering me some money, and they're saying I'll pay you for that. So this is my self-interest is involved. So if the self-interest is involved for any reason, so we have to consider that. So it said yes, my self-interest is involved because I will give the information if I get some money. So I have a self-interest. So this is the threat. Then he's saying the accountant must resign immediately from the company as her integrity has been compromised by offer from the potential customer. So this is not true. This is false because if someone offer me bribe and any gift, doesn't mean I have to resign immediately. So they might offer me some type sort of gift or bribe, but doesn't mean I have to resign immediately from that. All right, so let's move on to the next point. What we have. So the next question we have, that is from the ethics. It says an accountant is following the conflict of resolution process in the code of professional ethics in respect of ethical dilemma at work. He has collected evidence and documented the process carefully so he can seek guidance on the dilemma for another accountant. Complete the following statement by selecting one of the option below. So in relation to the evidence and documents, the accountant must particularly careful to ensure the fundamental principle of confidentiality is not breached when seeking the guidance. So remember, when we look for the evidence from the client or from anyone, we have to make sure like we are not breaching the confidentiality, because when you handle the documents, sometimes you have to take the documents to our office for the work. So confidentiality we have to maintain. So for any reason we cannot compromise the confidentiality. So if we handle the confidential documents of client and seek for evidence, make sure we handle it with the confidentiality. All right, so let's move on to the next one. The next one we have an accountant has a client who has been involved in counseling criminal property. The accountant has reported the client to the relevant authority and has told the client this. So this is basically tipping off, isn't it? So basically, someone you know involved with the money laundering, you're telling the authority like, I know someone who is involved with the money laundering. By the same time you telling the client, I told about you to the local authority that you are involved with the money laundering, and the client will do everything to hide it. For example, if you see a criminal and you call the police and you tell the criminal as well, I told the police, so police is coming, so the criminal will be go by this time. So obviously this is called tipping off. So the accountant has committed the criminal offense of tipping off. Tipping off, you give the indication to the client that you inform about the offense to the authority and you inform him as well. The next one we have here, it says an accountant is a sole proprietor practitioner, and she has discovered that a client has been money laundering. So he is a sole practitioner. So accountant, let's say he has a practicing office. That means he don't work for anyone. So he don't have MLRO. MLRO means money laundering reporting officer. So if I work myself, and obviously I don't have anyone to report, like if I know someone is involved with the money laundering, so who should I report? So remember, if this is the case, you have to report the NCA, that is National Crime Agency. So when you're working in a company and you know someone is involved with the money laundering, you tell your immediate officer or the money laundering officer. But if you work by yourself and if you don't have anyone to whom you should tell, so that time you should tell the NCA, National Crime Agency. All right, let's move to the next one. Tax 1.2. This is the calculation bit, little bit from the ethics. Let's have a look. It said VAT control account. So we know the VAT control account anyway. So this task is based on the workplace scenario of BLM and Co. So let's have a look this question. In this question, we can see there's a VAT control is already prepared. So BLM and Co. VAT control account at 31st of March is as follows. VAT control account. So they are saying we have opening balance 60 and sales day book, purchase return day book, cash book, purchase day book, sales return day book, and the balance CD. So we have all the information anyway, but the question said there is a two error they found. So it said on reviewing BLM Co day books, you have found two errors. So what is these two errors? The VAT of 298350 on a sales invoice was wrongly recorded as sale on the 29 March. So what happened? Basically, something was the VAT, but mistakenly I said it is a sales. So this 2983 was VAT on sales, but mistakenly I said this is a sales. And as soon as I said it is a sale, it went to the sales day book, not the VAT control account. Number one. Number two is a supplier had overstated VAT 50 on an invoice received and posted by BLM on 27th of March. So they're saying a supplier basically overstated the VAT. So when the supplier overstated the VAT, that means we claimed more VAT. So when you buy something from the supplier, so we claim back this VAT as input VAT. Now, if the supplier overstated the amount by 50, the VAT amount, so we claimed more VAT, but actually we shouldn't claim. So we have to now pay the VAT back because that was a mistake, that was an error. So all you need to do, it's not very difficult question, it's very easy question. So all you need to do, you need to record this too. So if we open a VAT control account, for example, VAT control account, we're writing everything whatever we have here. Balance BD 60,880.98, then sales day book, that is 16172827, then purchase return, that is 2403.68. The other side we have the cash book, that is 60,880.98. Then purchase day book, that is 99,120.25, and sales return 3529.57. That's all we have. The balance CD need to be changed because the question said what will be the balance CD after we revised it. So after the journal are processed, what will be the revised balance carried down? That means balance CD. So all you need to do, you need to record these two. So the first one is the sales return, sales day book. So sales day book, that one we missed mistakenly. We thought it's a sale, but it is a VAT. So 2983.50. Also, the 50 we claimed here more. Now we have to pay it back. We said purchase return. So that was basically more VAT you have claimed, we have to give it back now. After that, we'll add this side, the credit side, and minus the debit side to find the balance CD. So we said, okay, let's do that. So that will give us the balance CD here. So we said if I added all of this, that will be 228046.43, 228046.43. And if I minus all of this from here, from the total, that will give me the balance CD, and that will be over 64,515.63. And this balance CD will come as a balance BD, same amount, 64,515.63. So you're going to write the new balance CD after we correct the errors. That will be 64,515.63. And this is my credit balance because the opening balance, the balance BD on the credit side. So that will be my credit balance. So the next question is asking what balance it is. Is it a debit balance or it is the credit balance? We said it is a credit balance. So we said it is our credit balance. That's it. Let's move to the next one. The next one is said you discovered that BLM and Co has been supplying zinc to Melon Limited, a company owned and run by the brother of your fully qualified colleague Jed Malone. When you look at the relevant invoice, you realize that Jed has been misrecording VAT so that BLM and Co sales to Malone Limited are overstated. As a result, Malone Limited qualified for 15% trade discount on his future purchase from BLM and Company. So basically, this guy, yeah, he is the brother, obviously, and he tried to overstate the invoice so that Melon Limited can get 15% trade discount from BLM. So you identified that, you found this one. Applying the conceptual framework from the ethical code, which one of the following describe the situation faced by Jed Malone when recording the sales to his brother company? So obviously, what type of threat he is facing? So this question is quite common. He is a brother. So obviously, this is a familiarity threat of objectivity. So we know that he is brother. So it's a familiarity threat. The next one we have you conclude that deliberate misrecording of VAT is unethical behavior by Jed Malone. So you identify this guy is doing intentionally, it's not a mistake. What should you do next? So question is asking, what should be your next action? Remember, if you have a someone on the organization, let's say the reporting officer or the higher officer or the director, you should inform them first rather than tell that NCA directly. So first you need to inform them. If they cannot solve it, then you have to tell to the NCA. So you don't straight away tell the National Crime Agency. So you said send a tell Brian and Lakmani about your concern. So they are the owner of the business. So you tell them first this is happening so that they'll try to solve it. All right, so let's move to the next one. It said one morning, on the morning 16th April, Jet Malone is dismissed for the misconduct of BLM and Co. So he was doing something wrong, so he is dismissed and leave the office. You are temporarily BLM and Co only accountant. So you are the one who is working for the company as an accountant right now because your qualified person is left. A VAT officer will be coming to the office for a planned visit on the afternoon 16 April. You are not prepared for this visit and do not believe you can answer any question from the VAT officer effectively. Brian and Luckman insist that you must be present and deal with the VAT officer without assistance. So they are saying the owner said, stay with the VAT officer and carry on the visit. What should be your next action? Remember, don't do it because you cannot do it. You don't have enough experience. So you said request that visit by the VAT officer is postponed. So you let the VAT officer know I'm not very qualified person, so I don't have enough training right now. So make the visit postponed. So you make a request to him. Normally, if there is a visit from HMRC or from the VAT, if you make a request, they always listen. They always give you time. All right, so let's move on to the next question. The next question we have, this is for the sales ledger control. So this question we have, they said, as a result of Jet misconduct, Brian and Lakmani have asked you to examine his recording of sales ledger transaction in the 3 month ended 31st March 2007. You identify the following information. Sales ledger control account balance at 1st January 2007, that is 492,409. So this is the opening balance we had on January. And from January to March, so they are asking the owner of the company, they're asking because someone did something very wrong. So they are asking, can you check, is there anything else wrong in this sales ledger control account? So they ask you to check for the last 3 months, January to March. You have all the information, and basically they are asking to identify, complete the sales ledger control account below by including the four option in the appropriate column, and enter the total, construct the sales ledger control account for the 3 months. So obviously we can do it, we have the information. And amount owed 31st March, so they are asking to find it out what is the balance. And this is the closing balance as confirmed by the credit customer, 487. So obviously we understand from here, that's my opening balance 1st of January, and 31st of March, that's my closing balance. So that's my balance BD, and that's my balance CD. This question is from our incomplete records. So let's start with that. So opening balance, we have this one already here. This is balance BD, and balance CD closing balance is already here. We have receipt from the credit customer. So if we receive the money from the credit customer, that will reduce the balance from the credit customer. So that will be on the credit side. So we can write bank or cash, whatever you said. There is no problem for that. You can write bank or you can write cash book. That will give you the amount, how much you received from this credit customer. Because if you receive the money, that will reduce their balance. Because at the beginning, we are expecting 492, but they paid 934076. Number one. Number two, sales to credit customer, including V. So if I make a more credit sale, that will increase the amount, outstanding amount to the credit customer. So is it credit sale or sales day book, whatever it is. Sales day book, that is 970,370. Then number three, we have return. So sales return. If the customer return to you, he not going to pay for that. So I'm writing the other side. So sales return, that is 21177, and irrecoverable debt including VAT 4340. So irrecoverable debt. Irrecoverable debt means the amount we are not expecting from the customer anymore. So some customer, they said they close the business and they cannot pay our outstanding balance. So we expecting they cannot pay this balance. So we said irrecoverable debt. So the money it is not possible to recover, that is called irrecoverable debt. So that's all. After that, we need to see what is the difference. We added the debit side. So if we added this two, that will be 1462,779. We're writing the same amount, 1462,779. After that, we minus the credit side, and the balance should be this. If this is not the balance CD, we need to find the difference, and we need to say why there is a difference. So we can see, so we have the journal, so we have a difference that is saying here, Let's have a look. How much is the balance? So our balancing figure is 15,842. So this is the balance. Normally it's supposed to be balance CD after deducting all of this, but there is a balance. So we can say this is the balance, the difference, 15,842. All right, let's move to the next one. Let's have a look. What is the next question? They said calculate the missing figure. That one we have already calculated. That is 15,842. Then we have which of the following could missing figure represent? Now it was on the credit side, and most likely it is a discount allowed. So maybe we give some discount to the customer, and this one you forget to enter, and that's why like the difference is coming. So if you give a discount to your customer, so customer going to pay you less money, and that's the reason maybe the balance sheet is less than expected. So we said the possible reason, I'm not sure, but the possible reason could be the discount allowed. All right, the next one we have complete the following statement about the irrecoverable debt. The amount of irrecoverable debt. So basically, what is the irrecoverable debt? So when a specific customer cannot pay. So remember, there is two things. The one is doubtful debt, DOUBT, doubtful debt. One is a doubtful debt. Doubtful debt means you still have doubt the customer can pay you or not. So still you are in doubt the customer can pay you or not. But irrecoverable debt means you are 100% sure, you are 100% sure that customer cannot pay you. So if you're 100% sure the customer cannot pay you, that means you know this customer, isn't it? So for example, if I said I have 100 customer, but two customer I'm sure they cannot pay, so that means I know this two customer. So irrecoverable debt is always related to a specific customer. So I already know who is this customer who cannot pay me. So that will tell me basically the irrecoverable debt. All right, let's move on to the next one. Task 1.3. Let's have a look what we have here. This question could be tricky in the exam because you have to write like a reply of the email, like a letter, like a memo. So make sure you understand this question very well. This question is saying today's date is 28th of February 2008. You are Sam Jones, a part qualified accounting technician. You are work for BLM and Co, a business which manufactures and sells zinc. BLM and Co is owned and run by Brian and Lakmani, more in the partnership. We already know that. Brian asked you to prepare some financial statement, including a statement of cash flow and some further documents, including cash budget. He wants you to do it urgently. He need to send this to the bank by the end of this week in support of the loan application. Brian tells you that obtaining the loan is very important for survival of the business and that the job of everyone in the business depends on this. So far, your study have not covered a statement of cash flow or cash budget. So basically, Brian is one of the owner. He's asking you, can you prepare the cash budget and statement of financial position because we need some loan from the bank, and the loan is so important because everyone's job is depends on that, and you never had an experience, you don't know how to make it. So explain the ethical issue that you face as a result of Brian request. In your answer, refer the conceptual framework of the principles, threat and safeguards in the code of practice. Safeguards means what is the safeguard, like what is the possible action you can take so that you don't have to do it. So we have few questions here. The first one is what is the fundamental principle here, threat and the safeguard. The first thing here is like I cannot do it. So you have to tell the Brian, I cannot do it because I do not have sufficient expertise or training to carry on this task. Number two, the threat you are facing here. The first one is familiarity threat. Familiarity threat because you are very close to them. They know you very well. That's why they are doing this request. Number one. Then intimidation threat. Intimidation threat. Intimidation threat is when someone pressure you, so they are saying if we don't get this loan, maybe everyone job will be gone because it depends on that. So everyone job will be in risk. That means they're giving you pressure. If you don't do it, maybe you're going to lose your job. It's intimidation threat. And self-interest threat as well, because you might think I have to keep my job, so let's do it. Even it is right or wrong, doesn't matter, I'll do it because I have to save my job. So if this is the situation, this three threat you face here. The next one is safeguard. What is the safeguard you have? So you have to tell Brian, like, I need more training and qualification in order to carry on this task. That's all. Let's move to the next one. The next one is saying you have discussed this matter with Brian and Lakmani, but they still wish you to carry out the task. So you already told the Brian and the Lakmani, sorry, I cannot do it. I don't have the experience and training. But it's still they're saying, do it, do it. So what will be your action now? Said state specific course of action you should take in order to remain ethical. So what you'll do to stay ethical. So for that reason, I'll tell the Brian and Lakmani, I cannot, I cannot carry on this task completely. So please give to someone else. So I'll tell them like I cannot carry on this because I don't have enough training or experience to prepare the cash budget or the cash flow statement or financial statement. So can you give someone else? So that will be my reply for Brian and Lakmani because they are not listening to me. Okay, the next question we have. Good morning, Sam. So I have an email from someone from Lakmani. Brian, I Brian and I are considering starting to operate a business as a limited company. So basically now you received a email from your two owner and they're saying they are thinking to open the business as a limited company because before they were partnership. Now they are thinking to open as a limited company. I would like to tell me more about the advantage and disadvantage of a partnership become a limited company. So he's asking, can you tell me a little bit about the advantage and disadvantage of a limited company? So please include a brief description of limited company. So what is limited company? A summary of our position as owner if the business become limited company. So if we convert the business into limited company as the owner, what will be our position? Explanation of one key advantage and disadvantage of limited companies. So asking one advantage to open limited company and one disadvantage to open a limited company. Okay, so let's write it down. So the first one they're asking, what is limited company? So we said the definition of the limited companies, we already know that separate entity, isn't it? Separate entity. So separate entity. where the owner and the business are separate. So separate entity concept. So owner and the business are separate. Uh, this is the main fact of the limited company. So business and the owner are separate. The next point we have to write what will be their situation. So there will be the shareholder. There will be the shareholder of the business, and they can also be directors. As a directors, they can take the salary from the business, but it will be their responsibility to submit accounts on time and follow all the regulation of Company Act. So as a director, they have to submit the accounts, all this legal requirement, they have to submit on time to HMRC or to Company House. The next point, they're asking one advantage and one disadvantage of having a limited company. So the main advantage to have a limited company is limited liability. Limited liability. So their liability will be limited, not like partnership. They have to pay the debt by selling their personal asset. So they only lose the money whatever they invested. So their liability will be limited. This is the advantage. The next one is disadvantage. So disadvantage is not very straightforward. So they have to follow all this regulation. So the regulation following could be sometimes difficult for the organization because they have to go through all this regulation and the compliance. Maybe that will have a extra cost for the business. So to follow all the compliance could bring extra cost for the business. So basically, this is the end of the first area for this synoptic exam for the ethics. So we'll have one more area that will be the Excel part. So maybe we're going to make another video where I'm going to show how to complete all this task in Excel. Maybe we'll make another part 2 session. But from this session, all we have learned how to answer for the ethics side. So hopefully it will be helpful for you. And if you need any assistance from me, you have my email on the bottom. You can always email me. Hopefully I will try to help you. So the next video, hopefully I'll make that will be on the Excel. So you will see uh, how we can solve all these Excel formulas and all this quotient for the synoptic. Thank you everyone for watching, and hopefully the next video will be for Excel.